Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the 2017 ACC Coaches Football Media Teleconference. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Afterwards, we will conduct a question-and-answer session. At that time, if you have a question, please press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. If at any time during the conference you need to reach an operator, please press *0. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded Wednesday, October 25th, 2017. I would now like to turn the conference over to Mike Finn. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you, and welcome to today's ACC Football Coaches Media Teleconference. As usual, transcripts and audio files of today's call will be available later this afternoon on the ACC website, theacc.com. Today's teleconference is also being streamed live. If you're in the queue, please limit your questions to an opening question and then a follow-up. If you have more questions, just get back in the queue. We'll come around to you if time permits. And with that, we welcome Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly, who's Fighting Irish, ranked 9th in AP, 10th in the Amway Coaches Poll, will host NC State. The Wolfpack are ranked 14th in AP and 15th in the coaches this Saturday at Notre Dame Stadium. The game will have a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by NBC. This is the Wolfpack's first visit to South Bend. And with that, Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Certainly. Playing, arguably one of the hottest teams in college football right now. North Carolina State's won 6 in a row. Dave Doran's done a great job with this football program. Extremely balanced is the thing that stands out to me. Offensively, top 25 in a number of categories offensively. Incredibly no turnovers on offense. Ryan Finley's done an incredible job this year. He's got great weapons in Samuels and Hines. And then on defense, Bradley Chubb, B.J. Hill, 6th in rushing defense. Just an outstanding football team and a great challenge for our football team coming up this Saturday.
Questions for Coach Kelly?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. Our first question comes on the line of David Oven from The Athletic. Please go ahead.
Brian, over the course of your coaching career, have you seen a difference in just pure results from your team when they're coming off of bye weeks?
Generally, yes. I mean, I think that there's generally speaking now, I think that there's a mental advantage coming off a bye week more so than the physical. Everybody needs that break physically, but I think that there's also a lot when it comes to college and, we're playing so many more younger players. The break really helps from a mental perspective and allowing these kids to kind of reset and really focus on just one thing, and that's football. So I'd say that is probably the one thing, especially here at Notre Dame, that the bye week really helps you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
Our next question comes on the line of Samuel Evers from Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, both of your teams are, NC State and Notre Dame are both coming in under fairly unique circumstances. Just wondering, as a coach, which one do you sort of prefer? Is it, the bye that NC State has or the kind of momentum that you guys have coming off of last week?
Oh, I think that I would have preferred that North Carolina State played a very physical game, against Clemson maybe. But no, in all seriousness, it's really, for us more about, our preparation. We know what we're going to get from North Carolina State. They've shown it. I think once you win 6 in a row, you've kind of, you've shown who you are as a football team. And so we know what we're going to get there. Maybe a little bit more creativity on offense, a couple of wrinkles here or there, but they're going to settle into who they are, just as they know we're going to settle into who we are. So, again, I think, from our perspective, the break was great for us for the USC game, but, having now played, I think both teams know what they're going to get, regardless of whether there's a bye or not.
Gotcha. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of Lou Samogi with blueandgold.com. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach. Can you just provide an update as far as Greer Martini, if he was able to practice, and also the status of Dexter Williams?
Yes. Greer was able to practice yesterday, full contact. He was involved in all of our team activities, so he is a go, looked good. He was also activated on special teams as well, so feel really good about his being, really just kind of seamlessly working his way right back into where he was. Dexter looked good. I mean, I think to say he's 100%, I wouldn't, but I would say he can impact the game for us, and he's ready to play on Saturday.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Kelly?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, before we let you go, I know your team has gotten a lot of attention, particularly your offensive line this year. Can you talk about the progress that they've made this year for you?
I think we came in with a lot of people knowing about Mike McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson, the left tackle and the left guard. I think the progress has been that the unit, all together with Sam Mustafer, Alex Bars, and then playing 2 freshmen at right tackle, and that going very well with Robert Hainsey and Tommy Kramer. So I think the unit together, all 5, has probably been the most satisfying, and not having to rely on two players. That's really probably the biggest thing for us in having the effectiveness in running the ball.
We do have a question by the line of Samuel Evers with Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, and just another thing related. Obviously, you guys have had a lot of success in the ground game this year, and then conversely, NC State obviously has been great against the run. I imagine for you guys in preparation, that's been sort of an emphasis.
Oh, there's no question that we can't change who we are, and certainly they didn't all of a sudden not get strong and physical and
right.
be who they are. So something's obviously going to give there, but we have to obviously have some balance to our offense, and when we have the opportunity to throw the football, we've got to be more efficient. So again, it's like anything else. I mean, we're going to establish the run. We're still going to be run first. But when we have opportunities to throw the ball, we have to be more efficient and throw it at a higher completion rate. There's no question about that.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Any more questions for Coach Kelly? Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday, actually, again.
Yep. We'll be back at it next couple of weeks. Thank you.
We'll be joined by Coach Bronco Mendenhall momentarily. Okay, we're back, and we're joined by Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall, whose Cavaliers will travel to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for a Saturday game against Coastal Division rival Pitt at Heinz Field. The game will have a 12:30 p.m. kickoff, will be televised nationally over 17 different regional sports networks, including AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh and NBC Sports Washington in Virginia. This week, Quinn Blanding was named a semifinalist to the Jim Thorpe Award list as one of the top defensive backs in the nation. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Yeah, after learning a lot about our team, our program, and our current level of progress after 7 games this year, we're anxious to continue to learn and apply and grow versus another ACC opponent, and looking forward to playing. So I'll take questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4 on your telephone. Our first question comes from the line of Jerry DiPaola with Star Review newspaper. Please go ahead.
Thanks for your time, Bronco. I was just wondering if getting to 5 wins so close to bowl eligibility so early in the season was kind of a double-edged sword for your team.
I think it's played out that way. I was trying to keep a finger on the pulse of my team as each and every week and focusing on the present. Success is relatively new to this team, as none have been to a bowl game before. And so even though it was never mentioned by me, I think it was in their mind, and I think it helped us. I think it moved us thinking more about outcomes than the process and staying in the present for our work. I can't say that's for sure. Boston College played really well against us, and we didn't play as well. And whether that was a contributor or not, I'm not sure. But we're certainly addressing it, and at this point, and hopefully we have a new set point going forward.
How are you addressing it, Coach?
Really with the way we framed our off-season and the message we framed our off-season with, the way we framed our summer, our spring practice, our fall camp, and we have very specific metrics for every single play, and we think that each play is all that you can focus on, and once you focus on more than a given play versus and in relation to the metrics we've given our team to gauge success for that play, anything else other than that actually diminishes your chance to have success. So a lot less about outcomes and more about one play at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Hurdle with Herb Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Bronco. How you doing?
Hey, well.
Talk about Pitt. What do you see getting ready for that game? Because I know Pitt is I know they're struggling this year, but they have injuries at quarterback. They're not. They beat Duke last week, but my interception at the end of the game. So what do you see getting ready for that trip to Pittsburgh?
Well, I think Duke is another quality ACC opponent, and I think they've had a tough early season schedule. And they're certainly capable. I think they're capable of beating anyone in our league on any given day. I think they're talented enough, they're well coached enough, and they're capable enough. And it will take everything we possibly have to get the outcome that we're hopeful for. But I like their identity, I like their scheme, I like the way they're coached. I'm impressed.
And let's talk about what do you guys? What's the 3 keys for you guys to pull out a win?
I'm not sure if we have 3 keys that are separate. For this particular game, we are very consistent, and we don't stray much based on week to week. But for us, the points certainly matter, and field position matters, and turnovers matter, and those 3 things are pillars of our program.
Well, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of John Kekis with the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. The ACC has a bunch of all-purpose guys who are pretty high up in the national rankings, and you'll be facing one this week in Quadri Henderson. What kind of problems do those guys present for you on a weekly basis? And is that a signature, do you think, of the ACC that you have so many of these guys, these versatile guys?
I think it's becoming a signature of not only the ACC, which I think the coaches are very strong and innovative in our league. I've been very impressed that way. I think it's becoming more prevalent in college football. But also when you have, a very good football player, you want him on the field as much as you can. And I know when I coached Brian Urlacher at New Mexico, we had him play defense. We had him cover kicks, return punts, return kicks. We threw the ball to him in the blue zone on fades. And so I just think that the talent in the ACC, when you have a player or players on your team that are capable of doing more than one thing, the more you can do, which helps your team. And so I just think the ACC coaches are maybe a little bit more progressive in using them.
And they really can make a difference in games. Hines at North Carolina State, they're unbeaten in the conference.
That's exactly right. And the player that we're playing this week, anytime a player of that capability has the ball in his hands, no matter how you get it to him, whether he's intercepting it, passing it, catching it, running it, that helps your team. So why not?
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Good luck Saturday.
Thanks.
Any more questions for Coach Mendenhall?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, we'll let you off easy today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend. We'll be joined by Dabo Sweeney in about 3 minutes, right at 10:40. Okay, we are back, and now we are joined by Clemson head football coach Dabo Sweeney, whose Tigers ranked 7th nationally by the Associated Press and Amway Coaches Poll. Will host Georgia Tech this Saturday at Memorial Stadium in Clemson. Just love that music. The game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff and will be televised regionally by ABC and to the rest of the nation on ESPN2. This marks the 83rd meeting between the two teams in football, in a series which began in Augusta, Georgia in 1898. Coach, just a brief opening statement, then we'll go to questions.
Okay, Mike, I appreciate it. Well, for us, we're coming off an open date, and just excited to get back to playing. It's been a long couple weeks here, just trying to get ourselves better as a football team. Got a lot of guys that are trying to get healthy. Proud of our team. After 7 games, we're still in the hunt and in the mix of this division and this conference, and that's really what we're trying to do. That's always been our goal here, is to have a chance to compete for this league and to consistently do that. So here we are going into game 8, and we're right where we want to be. With a chance going into late October, early November to compete for this conference. So got a huge challenge Saturday night with Georgia Tech. This is a really good team. Got great respect for them and what they do and how they do it. They're literally 2 plays away from being an undefeated football team. So Paul's done a great job, man. They have had a couple tough breaks, but this is a team that can beat anybody, and I mean that. But for us, it's just trying to focus on playing well and correcting some of the mistakes, learning from these previous 7 games. That's what we've tried to do through this open date with a little extra time, and hopefully we can play our best 4 quarters Saturday night. We're certainly going to have to play well to have a chance to win the game. Any questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes on line of David Oven with The Athletic. Please go ahead.
Delve over the history of your coaching career. Have you noticed a difference in your team's results coming off bye?
I don't know. I've never really even studied that, to be honest with you. I'm sure somebody's got some data somewhere, but I think a lot of that depends on who you play and type of team you got year in and year out. But I don't really know. I think we've done okay for the most part, but I have no idea.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Any more questions for Coach Sweeney?
Our next question comes on the line of Will Vandervoort with the Clemenson Insider. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. How did Kelly do yesterday? And also, is there a limitation to where you want to see him get to before you decide, okay, I want to play him on Saturdays, like a certain percentage or something?
I mean, I can't jump in his body and do that. I mean, I just watch practice, and if he can practice and do everything that we ask our players to do in practice, then there should be no reason why he can't play. I mean, there's and then you always defer to the player. Sometimes you think a guy can go and he can't, but it's just watching practice, and as long as he can do everything he needs to do to be successful and help us win and gives us the best chance to win, and then he'll be good to go. But like I said, I get a report every day on who's in practice, who's limited, and who's out, and that's how we go about our business. He's taking every rep and doing a great job. But I have no idea. I mean, I don't really know of many players that are 100% this time of year. Anywhere. It's a long season, and most everybody's got something that they're dealing with. But Kelly looks good, and hopefully he won't have any setbacks, and he'll play a great game Saturday.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Any more questions for Coach Sweeney?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, while we're waiting just for a second, in the off week, everybody has a different way they look at it a little bit, but what were some of the priorities for your team during the off week?
Well, the biggest thing is just a lot of work on Clemson. You take advantage of some time as a staff to really reflect on the previous 7 games, really study yourself offensively and defensively, and then also we do a lot of crossover study. So our defensive staff studying our offensive staff studying our defense, and trying to help each other so that we can really plan a little better and give ourselves some good knowledge going into the second half of the season. And then some guys just rest, a lot of rest and rehab and treatment and things like that. I think that's a huge part of it. And then obviously you take a little extra time to work on the next opponent. And so that's really kind of our priority. And then for us here, we always do some community service as well. And then just give these guys time off. I mean, we practice Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays when we have an open day. Tuesdays we do community service, and that was a great day. And then we give our players off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think it's a great break for them just to kind of mentally, clock out a little bit and get their minds on something else and come back refreshed and recharged and ready to get back into the grind.
And I know that you played Georgia Tech on several occasions each year, but what different things do you see in this Georgia Tech team this year?
Well, they've got really good experience on defense. Ted's been there several years now, and they've got a great understanding of what they're doing. They put their players in position to be successful. They've got a good understanding of their scheme, and I think they're complementing each other well, offensively and defensively. And then over on the other side, they just different day, same story. They just do what they do so well, and they're incredibly well coached. Paul has such a great understanding of that system, and the quarterback has been outstanding. I mean, he has a great grasp, and that's really where it starts for what they do offensively. I mean, he is very empowered and has to be a great decision maker, and he has been. He's leading them in rushing. He's a tough kid. He's athletic. He's not that big, but man, he is dynamic. And then they usually always have some big receiver on the outside, and that's exactly what they got in the June kid. He's 6'3", 200-something pounds, and they're averaging right around 18 yards of reception. So they don't throw it a ton, but when they do, it's chunks. They're just, again, a really good team that's talented and complementing each other with their styles of play.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
I appreciate it.
We'll be joined momentarily by Coach Fisher from Florida State right at 10:50. Okay, we're back, and we now welcome Florida State head football coach Jimbo Fisher, whose Seminoles will travel to Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, for a Friday night game against Boston College at Alumni Stadium. The game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPN, and of course this week Florida State defensive back Derwin James was selected as one of the semifinalists for the Jim Thorpe Award. The Thorpe is given annually to the nation's top defensive back. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Yes. Team rebounding this week after a very tough loss to Louisville. Louisville did a great job. It was a heck of a football game. They did a great job and drove down and at the end and made plays all throughout the game. We had opportunities, and we have to fight through those and learn how to execute at the right time, work on with our players again and explaining those things, but at the same time moving on to Boston College. Boston College has done an outstanding job. They've got played two outstanding games. The last two games ran the heck out of the football, but also their play-action game and the quarterback running and things have really, on offense, they've exploded, made plays. Defensively, they're always so sound in what they do. They blitz, they pressure. Guys are very big, strong, and very deceivingly fast, run very well, play great defense, got a great team. And you've seen the teams they've played all year and done a great job in the games coming up. Even the games that they haven't had success, they played great defense in those games and been very successful. So guys are looking forward to playing. Got a quick turnaround. It's been a very fast turnaround, cramming into these Friday games in, but the guys have done a good job and practiced very well. So looking forward to Friday night. Questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of David Oven with The Athletic. Please go ahead.
Jimbo, over the course of your coaching career, have you noticed a difference in your team's results coming off of bye weeks?
No, I think that depends on each team and how the maturity of each team and their personalities. I think each team, you say a bye week and like each person doesn't hold the same way. Each team doesn't. It has its own personality. I think that often depends on the team and the personalities that comes off with.
Do you think the value of a bye, aside from health and sort of mental rejuvenation, can be overstated sometimes?
Well, I do to a point. I mean, sometimes when you're on a roll, you don't want to bye. You want to keep rolling. You want to get things going. But at the same time, the mental and emotional stress that these young men are under at this age, I think they're very critical. I really do. I mean, sometimes you can say that because if you're playing well, you say, hey, we don't need one. But at the same time, these guys are going through a lot with school, academics, all the things that happen and go on in college life. And like I say, I'm a big advocate of the two during the season. I really think so for the health and welfare of kids when they're in student athletes who can't take care of their bodies all day long because of class and things like that. I think it's very critical for these guys to get a break mentally, emotionally, and psychologically.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next question comes on the line of Ted Sabo with Sports USA Radio. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Coach. I'm curious how you keep your guys with that positive mindset, specifically with the frustrating kind of losses that you've had, and how do you explain your road and home record this season?
Well, it's just that we've played some very good teams at home. All of them come down to the end. We've been very good at home all to that. We just hadn't played some great teams and haven't made the play at the end to do the things. But positive attitude, you explain to them what you have to play for and why you have to do it. I mean, these are character tests, and character, it reveals who you are and what you are. And it's not, sometimes things happen to you in life. It's how you deal with them, and you explain that. And these are great learning lessons for those kids, and explain why this will help them in life later down the road. It'll help our football team now and help them personally. So, you explain those things and get them to understand that.
Specifically, just being a few plays away from really having your entire season turned around, the guys have to have like character as a team, though, correct?
Yes, exactly right. I mean, character as a team and seeing that you are very close, and you, even though it keeps you to keep fighting. I mean, just because your goal, that win or that play has slipped away, you can't keep not fighting for those inches. That's what life's about. And you got to keep going, and you explain that to them, and that, it is, at times it can be disappointing, it can be frustrating, it can be overwhelming, it can be a lot of things, but at the same time, that's how you have to live life, and you have to keep going on and understand what you are as a person and what you want to stand for.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Ira Schofield with Russian.com. Please go ahead.
Hey, Jimbo, we spoke to Amir Rasul yesterday, and he seems like a very serious, kind of focused young man.
Yeah.
Could you talk about him, and has he always been that way?
Always. I mean, he is in practice, 1,000 miles. There is not a play he doesn't go 100 miles an hour. His work ethic in practice and his demeanor is a lot like Freeman and those guys were. I mean, every play he's going 1,000 miles an hour. Sometimes we have to say, hey, slow down just a little bit. And actually in Freeman's career early, don't be out of control in a crazy way because you're trying so hard. And but Amir's mindset and things in that regard is, as a personality trait, is that way. And he's very quick, but he's also just an extremely hard worker and says yes sir, no sir, and and is a very emotional, passionate guy about what he does. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean he takes it extremely seriously.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Fisher?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. We have a follow-up question by the line of Ted Sobel with Sports USA Radio. Please go ahead.
Yeah, a little follow-up, Coach, on the BC defense and what you expect to see there.
Follow up in what regard? I'm sorry. Did you have what was the question?
On the BC defense and what you expect to face?
Oh, very physical guys up front. Got a tremendous pass rusher. 2 of them. See, everybody talks on the one end on number 7, but the other end, Allen does a great job too. His numbers, if you look, he's leading them in tackles for loss, or even in only 1 sack down. So they put pressure inside, outside, bring different blitzes off the edges and up the middle. Secondary, very sound, very multiple in what they play. They play a lot of man, but then all of a sudden they'll be in traps. They'll be in quarters. They'll be in what we call special. I mean, the different looks in the secondary. Very disciplined, great eye control. Backers very physical downhill. Up front guys play the run and can rush the passer. I mean, do a great job and keep a lot of multiple looks.
And how do you see Blackman as a leader on the field right now, and how he's evolving?
He has leadership skills, very natural leadership skills. Guys like him, they respond to him, and he competes very well and does a really good job.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Coach? Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Mike. You have a great weekend.
We'll be joined by Coach Petrino of Louisville right at 11 a.m. Okay, we are back. We now welcome Louisville head coach Bobby Petrino, whose Cardinals will travel to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, for a Saturday game against Wake Forest at BB&T Field. The game will have a 12:20 p.m. kickoff, be televised nationally to 120 markets by the ACC network, including WHAS-TV in Louisville and WGHP in the Triad area of North Carolina. With that, we'll bring on Coach, ask for a brief opening statement, and then go to questions. Coach?
We're coming off of a good win on the road at Florida State. I was really proud of our players and how they prepared for the game and how hard they played. Defensively, I thought we played our best game of the year. We tackled well and ran fast and hard to the football. Got some pressure on the quarterback. Offensively, Lamar had another big game, as well as Reggie Bonifon, and it was good to see Dave Williams get started and get going. So we look forward to Saturday's game at Wake Forest.
Questions for Coach Petrino?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes on the line of David Ubben with The Athletic. Please go ahead.
Bobby, over the course of your coaching career, have you noticed a difference in your team's results coming off buys?
I don't know. We haven't had a bye yet this year, so we're probably one of the latest buys in the country. But normally we've done a good job coming off buys. We spend time going back and doing some drills that you do in camp in the off week. Do some ones versus ones, and then spend half the practice preparing for the team. So basically, we get about a week and a half ready for the next game.
Thanks, appreciate it.
You bet.
Any more questions for Coach Petrino?
As a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, while we're waiting for a question or two, could you talk a little bit about what you see in Wake Forest? It seems like each year under Coach Clausen they've gotten a little bit better. And what kind of issues, particularly offensively, do they present for you?
They're playing well. They're doing a good job of running the ball. They've got some really good wide receivers, and their quarterback's executing their offense well. So it's a good challenge for us, one that we're looking forward to.
Do you see any difference on their defensive
Mike,
side?
we don't need to do this.
Okay, Coach. Any more questions for Coach Petrino? Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Okay, we're back now, and we're joined by Syracuse head coach Dino Babers, who's Orange will have a bye week this week. Will next be in action on Saturday, November the 4th, when they travel to Tallahassee, Florida, to face Atlantic Division rival Florida State at Doak Campbell Stadium. The game will have a 12:20 p.m. kickoff. Will be televised nationally to 120 markets by the ACC network. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Well, obviously disappointed about the loss at Miami. Hats off to Coach Rick. It was a really good game. It was disappointing not to have an opportunity to win it at the end, but it was one of those contests where, as a football team, another close loss, and we have to learn to win those games. That's the difference between having a great season and a good season, and hopefully we're learning our lesson well. Great opportunity for a bye. We're really banged up. We've got a lot of guys hurt, and hopefully we can get a bunch of those guys back for the contest after this week when we go down to play Florida State, because we're going to need those individuals because they're a fine club.
Questions for Coach Babers.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Andrew Graham with the Daily Orange. Please go ahead.
Dino, I figured bye week's a good chance to talk about recruiting. At your introductory press conference, you talked about how you need to take care of New York State in regards to recruiting. 2 years in, or almost 2 years in, how well do you think your staff has done that?
Well, we're doing the best we can. We've got the moms and the dads have got to help us as well. We're trying to recruit the best players out of the state of New York that are possible. The one thing that I always want to do is I just don't want to recruit a young man because he has New York State on the back of his resume. I really want to recruit people from the state of New York that have an opportunity to play in the Carrier Dome. Someone that the fans can get behind and rally and get fans in there and they actually get to watch them play. I don't think it's fair to recruit young men just because they're from the state of New York and then they really don't have an opportunity to participate in and get an opportunity to get on the field and experience what playing college football is all about. So we always start in the state of New York. We're always looking for the best players in the state of New York that we think are capable of playing on our team. And then from that point out, we start spiral graphing out, trying to find the best players across the country.
Our next question comes from the line of Stephen Bailey with the Syracuse Post-Standard. Please go ahead.
Hey, Dino. I think it was sometime during camp you're talking about the schedule and said something along the lines of, if we make a bowl game, that'd be a real accomplishment. And I think just about anyone would have agreed with you. And now we're kind of 8 games into the season, 4-4. You've probably learned a lot about your team, and maybe the landscape of the ACC isn't exactly what everyone thought it would be. How do you kind of look at the chance to make a bowl game now? Do you think it's something you guys should be able to do, given what's in front of you?
I thought about this from this year to last year. This is a good question, Stephen. I thought one of the things that we did wrong last year is that we kept talking about bowl games before we talked about just winning the next game. And when you go back and you look at the 2016 season based off of our GPA and our APR ratings, which is so high, we were basically 1 win away from going to a bowl game. If we'd have won one more game based off of what happened, we'd have went to a bowl game. And to be 1 game short from the 2016 team and talking about going to bowls the entire year, this year I just don't want to do that. You know what I mean? We had another tough loss at Miami. We want to try to find a way to just win the next football game. We're playing a team that was ranked in the top 3 when the season started at their place, and we haven't won a game on the road in a week from now. So we're going to stay locked in and just trying to win the next game. And if it works out, it works out. I just don't want to start looking ahead like that. I get it that you guys got to, and I'm not saying you can't. But me individually and with the guys on the team, we're just looking at the next game.
Sure. Yeah, I understand that. And kind of switching gears, you've said you're hoping to get some guys back. We're just kind of looking at Kendall and Josh specifically, having D linemen with kind of apparent leg injuries. How do you kind of is that something that a guy can kind of jump right back in from, or do you really need to to get them going a little bit with practice beforehand?
You know, they haven't done any running. If you're asking me if they're running on the side and they're ready to go, the answer is no. You know, we first got to get them back where they can actually play in the game and defend themselves. You know, just because a guy can walk around or jog around a little bit doesn't mean he's healthy enough to go in there and keep himself safe in an atmosphere of a football game. So we haven't even got them to that stage yet. If we get them back and we get them back into a situation where we think they can defend themselves out there and not get further injured with their injuries, then they may be in an opportunity. It may be an opportunity where they can give us 10, 15, 20, 25 plays. And even by doing that and lessening the load on the other guys that are playing, that could make us and our defense better.
Sure. Thanks, Dino.
Thank you.
Our next question comes on the line of Matthew Gutierrez with the Daily Orange. Please go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Dino. Thank you for your time. Mo Neal got more time last game than he has in a while. How have you seen him progress, and do you see him getting more time in the next 4 games?
You know, it's hard to predict that stuff. I think the thing about Mo, and I've always said this, is he's so unselfish. He's good at a lot of things, and he's kind of like our fireman. If there's a fire over here, he can go over here. If there's a fire over there, he can go over there. And he's just so unselfish. And I wish I had a team full of Mo's. And if you have a team full of Mo's, you don't worry about who gets the credit. You normally end up with bowl seasons and everything else. Everything normally works out really well. But he's a very unselfish guy. I'm glad to see that he had some success in the game. I love it when he does have success in the game, and I hope he has an opportunity, and I hope that he does, with his opportunities, have the same type of success he's been having.
Thank you, Dino. And secondly, how would you evaluate special teams, especially punt and kick returns after 8 games?
I think that we are steady. I think we're consistently good in that area. I don't think that they are hurting us in any way. I think they are definitely doing their part.
Thanks, Dino.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Andrew Graham with the Daily Orange. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dino, just hopping back on a second question about recruiting. I've talked to some New York coaches that say, you sort of said you're not just going to recruit guys because they're from New York. But some coaches have said that you might have been...
Wait a minute. I didn't hear what you said. Say it again.
Yeah. So I've talked to some New York coaches that said you may have been a little distant or hard to reach at times, and that's maybe ruffled some feathers. Can you kind of speak to that, and what might you have to say to those coaches?
I have no idea who you're talking about. Anyone that wants to come see me at my office can. Anyone that wants to call me can speak to me. But I'm not going to talk about a rumor. No comment.
Thank you.
Our next question comes to the line of Nate Mink with Syracuse.com. Please go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about your video team, Austin and Sean and those guys in the creative side. Just seems like they've stepped their game up substantially over the last year. Was that something you identified as something that could help your program just in terms of fan engagement, reaching recruits, that sort of thing?
I thought that when we came, I just thought that was one department that we could really up our game. And I think that, kudos out to those guys. I think they have stepped their game up. I think they're championship level, and I don't want anybody to come steal them, but I think that they're definitely they're leading the conference, so to speak, in that stuff, and I'm really proud of them.
Cool.
Our next question comes on the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Coach, I was watching last week's game on television, and just the effort that Eric Dungy made was amazing to watch. How much does that rub off on the rest of the team? What kind of inspiration does the kind of effort that he makes spread to everybody else?
In the state of New York, they had that saying about Reggie Jackson, he was the straw that stirs the drink. Well, there's no doubt that Dungy is the straw that stirs our drink. He's our emotional leader on our football team on the offensive side of the ball. I think that Zaire and Paris Bennett and Chris Slayton are some of our emotional leaders on the defensive side of the ball. But on the offensive side of the ball, I think it's it probably starts with Dungy and then Ishmael and Irv Phillips. And there's all types of guys that do things, but Dungy is just so unselfish. You can just tell by the way he plays that all he cares about is winning.
Are you ever concerned that he's just going to run into a brick wall or something just because of the way he plays and putting him seems as if sometimes he puts himself in a lot of harm's way?
I think he is the way he is. We tell him to be smart. We try. You don't want to take the spirit out of a horse, but you do want to put a saddle on him, and you want to ride him, and you want to have a horse that's special. I think you got to be careful on how you balance how much you take out of his game, and all of a sudden you don't have the quarterback that everyone's talking about in the country. You just have a guy that's behind center that nobody knows their name.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Christopher Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead. Mr. Heidel, your line is now open.
Well, we may have lost Chris Heidel there, Coach, but thanks for being with us today. Enjoy the off week, and I know Coach Mendenhall at Virginia would appreciate your horse analogy there.
I'm always fired up anytime I can help Bronco out.
Take care, Coach.
All right, see you guys. Bye-bye.
We'll have a short break, and we'll be joined by Coach Paul Johnson of Georgia Tech right at 11:30. Okay, we're back, and we're joined by Georgia Tech head coach Paul Johnson, whose Yellow Jackets will travel to Clemson, South Carolina, for a Saturday game against the Tigers. We're ranked 7th nationally by both AP and the Amway Coaches Poll. The game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff, will be televised regionally on ABC and to the rest of the nation on ESPN2. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Well, good morning. I was proud of the way our team played against Wake Forest Saturday, especially in the second half. I'm not sure we played particularly well in the first half, but I think you have to give Wake Forest credit, and I think that they're a good football team. They've got some good players, and they're well coached and play well together. So come out and play the way we did in the second half, I was proud of that effort. Huge challenge this week. Night game in Death Valley against a team that's got a plethora of really good athletes and a team we've struggled with here the last couple of years. So it's a challenge for us, but it's an opportunity, and we're looking forward to going up and playing.
Questions for Coach Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Sam McCowan with Omaha World Herald. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm working on a story about coaches who are having some growing pains in year 3 of their tenure at Power 5 jobs. There's 4 or 5 of them this year that are kind of having those issues, and that was the case for you in your 3rd year at Georgia Tech. You guys kind of took a step back in year 3, but then you took a big jump forward the year after that. What do you remember about that year and maybe some of the challenges that you went through at the time? And was it related to youth and inexperience and having to try to rebuild the roster a little bit after the first 2 years?
Well, what happened to us after year 2, we had 4 juniors come out early in the draft, and then our starting quarterback got hurt, broke his arm in the 4th game, the 5th game up at Virginia Tech. And so I think that really I think some of the seniors, because we thought we were going to have almost the whole team back from the conference championship team in 9, and when the 4 guys came out early, I think that some of the guys who stayed kind of resented that, or it was a little bit of that, but we were going along okay, and I think we were up 14-0 in Blacksburg when our quarterback threw a pick and broke his arm on the tackle. And after that, it was a struggle. I mean, we had to replace him with a guy who hadn't played, and we struggled. I can't remember what our record was. I think we were a little over 500, but that's the thing I remember is we lost those 4 guys, and we knew that we thought we were going to lose 1, possibly 2, but we didn't think we were going to lose 4.
When you have a big season like that, and then that very next season is a little bit of a struggle, how do you keep the guys up and convince, we're going in the right direction, but we're just having sort of the year 3 blues, so to speak?
Well, I don't think we even talked about it. I think you kind of approach each season the same, and you set the expectation and you leave it at what it is, and you go about your task, and I don't ever try to compare years. I think every team's different, and we just talk about the goals for that year and try to reach those, and don't lower the standard. Doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter who gets hurt or what happens. You got to keep the same expectation level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, what qualities or what attributes do you look for in a B-back, and how does Kervonte Benson, how does he fit in that role for you?
Well, like everybody else, we're just looking for a guy who's a good running back. If they're a little bigger, that's you probably don't want a guy in there that's under 200 pounds. Although we've had them that played and did well. Kervonte's done a nice job. He's got a really strong lower body. He's got good speed, and his vision's getting better all the time. I think the more he plays, so he's had a good year up to this point.
Do you just when you recruit for that position, are you looking for specific types of guys, or just a good all around running back who just
good
fits
players.
well?
Just good players. We're not, like I said, we probably wouldn't recruit a 170-pound guy to play in there, a 180-pound guy, but just guys who are good running backs. That's what we're looking for. No different than anybody else.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Our next question comes on the line of Anna Hickey with 24/7 Sports.
Clemson was able to hold you guys under 100 rushing net yards the past 2 years. Why, in your mind, did you think Clemson was able to accomplish that?
Negative plays. A lot of sacks, a lot of lost yardage plays.
And what have you seen from Clemson's defensive, I guess mainly their defensive front this year, and how do you plan to kind of attack that?
They're good. They've been good for a few years. They've got a lot of guys, and they roll them, and they're big and fast and strong, and we plan to do what we do every year. That's what we do. We're not going to change what we do. We've just got to play a lot better than we've played against them. Really last year especially. I think the year before we were somewhat limited with when we played them. But last year we played a horrendous first half and, played a little better in the second half, but we got so far behind it really didn't matter. Of course, they did that to a lot of people. They're pretty good.
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from the line of Chris Heidel with Herb FM Sports Radio. Please go ahead. Mr. Heidel, your line is open. You can proceed with your question.
Coach, I guess we lost Chris Heidel there. But just before you go, Shamiri Devine was one of the guys that was nominated for Offensive Lineman of the Week this past week. Can you talk a little bit about his development for you this year?
Well, Shamir's played a lot of football. He's I think our only senior up there on the offensive line, and he he's fought his weight the whole time he's been here, but when he stayed healthy and played, he's a big guy. He's about 6'6", 380, and he's got good feet, and he does a nice job, at the point of attack, and he's a pretty good pass protector inside. So, he's playing well. He played the whole game the other night, which I'm proud of him because that's been his challenge, playing, and he's done that a couple of times. He also played 77 plays against Tennessee, so. He's had his best season, I think, this year so far.
Any more questions for Coach Johnson?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're back. We're now joined by North Carolina head coach Larry Fedora, whose Tar Heels will host Coastal Division rival Miami this Saturday at Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill. Miami is ranked 8th nationally by AP and by the Amway Coaches Poll. The game will have a noon kickoff, be nationally televised by ESPN2. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the top 10 team coming into our stadium. Mark's got these guys playing at a very high level. They're taking care of the football, and they're creating turnovers on defense and playing really good on special teams. So we are looking forward to this weekend.
Questions for Coach Fedora?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Sam McKeown with Omaha World Herald. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. How are you this morning?
Good.
Good. I'm doing a story on there's a number of coaches, including one or two in the ACC, that are struggling in their third year in a program, and that was kind of the story for you, that you guys kind of struggled in year 3, but then made a big jump in year 4. As you look back on that particular portion of your career, what do you remember about that third year? Was there youth and inexperience that you guys were working through, and what kind of confidence did you guys have that you were going to make a big jump the next season?
We were looking back on that. I was in 14. We didn't have a very big senior class. We were coming off of dealing with some sanctions from the NCAA from before I got here, and we did not have close to a full load of scholarships. And so it was a battle. It was a battle early in the year, and we kind of turned the corner and started. We went to a bowl game and had some success there, and so that just kind of started the process for the next season.
Early in that season, with few seniors, obviously you guys were probably pretty young and didn't have necessarily a lot of leaders. How did you kind of handle that? The noise that was maybe going around and turning that team into something that ultimately became really good over the next 2 seasons after that.
It was, we knew we had some good young talent, but it just had to be developed, and so it was more about the coaches had to provide the leadership because we didn't have a whole lot of leadership. When things aren't going good, that's when your leaders have to emerge, and we counted on some younger guys to try to lead, and it was difficult for them to do that under those circumstances. But they really became really good leaders in the future, and they all learned from the reps and that they had gotten, in that season, which made them all better as we went on.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, I just wondered, which is Chaz Surratt, what health-wise, how's he doing, and will he be available this weekend?
Yeah, he'll be available. I mean, I think I think he's beat up just like everybody else is in college football, but he'll be available. Yes.
Will he start?
We'll make that decision probably sometime Friday.
Okay. You mentioned all the ways Miami's playing well right now, offense, defense, and special teams. What in particular stands out about them defensively?
Well, defensively, they've they do a lot to disrupt, a lot of movement up front. There are a lot of tackles for loss. They pressure quite a bit, and they play multiple coverages on the back end. So they're doing a lot of things, and they're doing it well. Got guys running to the football.
And then offensively, they've got a young quarterback who seems to have he's got a lot of good talent around him. But what do you see on film from him, Rozier?
Yeah, I tell you what, the most impressive thing about him is his development in taking care of the football. I mean, that's what he's done a tremendous job of, and Mark's done a great job with him because they know they're playing really good on defense and they're playing good on special teams, and so if we don't turn the football over, we got chances to win, and that's the reason they're the 8th team in the country.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any more questions for Coach Fedora? Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
It's always a pleasure, Finn. Always a pleasure.
For sure, Coach. Take care. We'll be back with Coach Fuente from Virginia Tech right at 11:50. Okay, we're back, and we're joined now by Virginia Tech head coach Justin Fuente, who's Virginia Tech Hokies, ranked 13th nationally by both AP and the Amway Coaches Poll, will host Coastal Division rivals Duke this Saturday at Lane Stadium in Blacksburg. The game will have a 7:20 p.m. kickoff, be televised to 120 markets of the ACC network, including WCW-TV in Roanoke, Lynchburg, and WRAL-TV in Durham. Saturday's game will mark the first primetime telecast by the Raycom ACC network package since its inception in 1984. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Sure. Pleased to get the win last week. Happy to be back at home, playing a very talented and well-coached Duke football team. They're playing great defense. I think the last 4 games combined between Virginia Tech and Duke, there's 1 point difference in the combined score. So we're preparing for a tough, hard-fought battle.
Questions for Coach Fuente.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
Coach, 5-10 years ago, Duke wasn't considered to be a major football power. Since Coach Cutcliffe got there, they've improved tremendously. What do you see about Duke on film?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say David's pedigree speaks for itself. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. He's as fine a football coach as there is in all of America, maybe the most underrated football coach in America. We played Duke when we were just starting out at Memphis, and they had good, solid teams then, and I don't think that those teams, as good as they were, are even close to as good a teams as they have now. When you look at the way they're coached, how fundamentally sound they are, and the type of athletes they're recruiting now. I mean, they are recruiting better and better athletes. So they've got, the perfect recipe to have success. They've got really, really good coaching, sound schemes, and they're getting better and better athletes in there.
Coach, last question. Thank you for your time today. There's at least 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams in the ACC that controls their own destiny, and you're one of them. Win out and you're in. Your players got to realize that, right?
Well, we don't talk too much about the long term here. I have never brought up winning out or anything other than the next game. When we had our bye week, we knew it was right in the middle of the season, and we said we have 6 more games, all within our division, and we've got to have to take them one at a time. So we spend little or no time talking about the big picture and try to focus ourselves weekly on making sure we're ready to play.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
You bet. Thank you.
Our next question comes from the line of Andy Bitter with the Roanoke Times. Please go ahead.
Hey, Justin. It sounds like Jalen Holston had a drastically different high school offense that he was a runner in. How much of an adjustment has that been for him getting to the college game, in addition to just all the other things that go along with college for him?
Yeah, I'd say it's been a significant adjustment, in short. He was lined up 2 yards right behind the quarterback and basically took the dive right up the middle. And, to start to get into protections and route running and releases and, different zone steps and different schemes has been different for him. Now, the good thing is he's another one of those kids that we've talked about. He's a highly intelligent young man. He's picked it up quickly, and he's still refining it, obviously, but I think that added another dimension to his adjustment to college.
Were there moments that you saw as maybe the light kind of come on for him a little bit in terms of protections or hitting the right holes or anything at a point this season?
Well, it's just been a steady improvement. We felt like that he would continue to improve as the season went along. That's why we made the decision to play him early, because we felt like he certainly would keep improving, and he has. I don't know, Andy, that there's been a singular moment, but there have been a bunch of little moments that you can measure and see that he's getting the hang of things.
Thanks.
Our next question comes on the line of Bill Huss from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Justin, do you see anything that's evident for Duke's had they won their first four, that they've fallen off, lost four in a row? Any particular things that have gone wrong for them in this stretch?
Oh, I don't think there's anything specific. I think they're continuing to play hard. They've run up against a couple pretty talented teams. I mean, watching the crossover film is the first I've seen of Miami and Florida State this year, and those are immensely talented teams. They just had one or two plays, I felt like, defensively against Pittsburgh, where they just missed a gap, and it ended up being a big play. So, when I watch them play, I think they're going to play in a lot of close football games. They play great on defense. They're a top 20 defensive team right now. Very solid in the kicking game, and they're going to win plenty more games as this season goes along.
They've got a linebacker who seems to be one of these tackling machines that you see out there, Joe Giles, a sophomore linebacker. Do you see do you notice him on film in particular?
Well, I notice him and a whole bunch of guys out there playing hard. Their talent level, in my estimation. And again, I've been asked about this a couple of times, and I'm not an expert on the history of Duke football, but just when I watch them play, their talent level seems to have increased dramatically over the last several years. And they certainly understand their scheme and are playing hard and getting to the football.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Coach Fuente?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
You bet. Thank you.
We'll be joined by Coach Dave Clausen of Wake Forest right at 12 noon. Okay, we are back, and we're joined now by Wake Forest head coach Dave Clausen, whose Demon Deacons will host Atlantic Division rival Louisville this Saturday at BB&T Field in Winston-Salem. The game will have a 12:20 p.m. kickoff, will be televised to the 120 markets of the ACC network. including WGHP TV in the Triad area of North Carolina and WHAS TV in Louisville. Coach, just a brief opening statement. We'll go to questions.
Yeah, we look forward to hosting Louisville this week back at home. We haven't played at home in a month, so I think our players are excited to get back to BB&T, and we play an excellent Louisville team. Really good on offense, the number one offense in the ACC, scoring and yards, and I think their defense probably played their best game of the year last week. So they're good in all facets. They're very talented, and it'll be a great challenge for us.
Questions for Coach Clausen.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, nobody else has had much success in containing Lamar Jackson. How do you go about preparing for a guy? You know he's going to make plays. He's going to accumulate yards and points. And what's the secret to keep him from going off for huge numbers, if there is one?
I mean, he's just so gifted and so talented of an athlete, and I mean, it sounds simple, but you just have to be able to tackle him, and that's a lot easier said than done. He is just elusive, slippery. There's just plays that it looks like the defense has leverage, and he just outruns. There at times our defenders are in good position, and he just outruns them, out-athletes them. He's faster than them. And then, when you just say, try to keep him in the pocket, he can pick you apart. He reads coverages well. He throws a beautiful deep ball. He's got good receivers that go up and get it. And, you don't average 550 yards a game by accident. And they've got really different ways of getting him the football. If you do something to take him away, then there's something else that they can do to counter that keeps the ball in his hands. So he's a very, very difficult out.
I would think that obviously one of the things that you can do to help yourself would be ball control. If you can sustain some drives and keep him off the field and put them in the hole.
Well, I mean, you have to make first downs, but they're the type of team that no lead is safe. They can just quick strike and one play you and 80-yard you. That you're not going to shut them out. They're going to score points. They're going to get yards, and you're going to have to find ways to get stops on third downs. And it's one of those games that the offense is going to have to rise up and go punch for punch to have a shot.
So it sounds like you're in for a shootout then.
Well, I mean, they're certainly capable. I mean, they're capable of winning games by scoring 50 and 60 points, and they've done that. We're improved on offense. We haven't shown the ability to do that yet against an ACC team, and I think that's our challenge. We're better on offense, but you don't know what's going to be required to win this game, and you got to be able to answer the bell. And that's certainly one of the things that I think we're better prepared to do this year than in the past. But until you've done it and done it consistently, it's hard to bank on that. So we've got to play well on offense. We've got to score touchdowns in the red zone. Last year we moved the ball a little bit on them, but we got bogged down in the red zone. And obviously limiting his big plays, like I said, which is much easier said than done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Coach Clausen?
As a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, at your press conference this week, you mentioned the fact that you've been at the crossroads of several big games and been right there, and your team hasn't been able to finish. How do they get to that point? How do you get them to the point where they finish in those games and come away with a key victory for you?
Well, you're right. I mean, we've been in games and been competitive against good football teams, but I don't think we can't ever relax. We had 2-score leads against both Georgia Tech and Florida State, and our response to getting those 2-score leads where we gave up a big kickoff return and we gave up a big play on defense. So, it's always playing that game with the score is 0-0 mentality. Every rep matters. Every play matters. In competitive football games, every play can be the difference of winning and losing. And you need to be able to play with that focus without it making you too uptight.
And one of your new playmakers this year, a young freshman named Greg Dortch, has brought some explosiveness to your offense. Can you talk about what he brings to the table for you guys both there and on special teams?
Well, just he's again a dynamic guy that has very good ball skills. He's got good open space skills. He has the ability to make people miss, and he's been good in terms of getting yards after the catch.
Any more questions for Coach Clausen?
Our next question comes from the line of John Kekis with Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, just to go a little bit further on Dortch. He's one of a bunch of guys in the ACC that are doing very well with all-purpose yardage. Can you comment on the strength of the ACC and how important is Dortch to what you guys do?
Well, he's really allowed us to open up the offense, that we've made a lot more explosive plays this year. I think everybody in this league has a space guy that is elusive in space, and we're going to face, perhaps the best in the ACC this week with the quarterback that we're facing. But it just seems like everybody has a player like that, and that was something that we really lacked. And he's given us that this year. He's made big plays. He gives us matchups on safeties and linebackers, and once he gets the ball in his hands, he has that ability to make somebody miss and get yards after the catch.
Does he relish that role?
Oh, he loves it. He loves it. I mean, that's his MO as a football player, and that's why we recruited him. We saw that on high school tape, and he just made dynamic play after dynamic play, and that was a reason that we recruited him. We needed some playmaking ability in the slot, and Tabari Hines played well too. So now we've got two guys we feel good about getting the ball to in that position.
Do you feel that this is kind of a trend? This type of player becoming a key factor?
I hope so for us. We always like guys that have good ball skills that can make people miss. So we can never have enough of them.
Great. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes from the line of Jake Lurem with the Courier Journal. Please go ahead.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for taking the time. Just a quick question about there's a story obviously this week about how your program has changed since the issue with the plays going to Louisville last year. Will you address that have you addressed that with your team at all this week, and how important do you treat it with this game coming up?
We didn't address it at all. That was a issue last year. It wasn't just Louisville; it was multiple teams. As I stated last year, we always viewed that as an internal Wake Forest issue that we addressed, and we've moved on from.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yep, you're welcome.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro again. Thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
We now welcome Pitt head football coach Pat Narduzzi, whose Panthers will host Coastal Division rival Virginia this Saturday at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. The game will have a 12:30 p.m. kickoff, be televised nationally over 17 different regional sports networks, including AT&T Sportsnet Pittsburgh and NBC Sports Washington in Virginia. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions. Coach Narduzzi?
Yes, sir.
Just go ahead and give your brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Great. Well, we had a nice win last week against Duke, and we move on to a very much improved Virginia football team. I think a tough football team. Well coached. Bronco in his second year there, and having a fine season. So they travel up to our place, and we're looking forward to it.
Questions for Coach Narduzzi?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Sam McQueen with Omaha World Herald. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sam.
So I'm doing a story on coaches who have at times take steps back in year 3, and that's kind of the case for you guys right now. I know that you guys aren't, the season isn't over, but there's clearly a little bit of a growing process for you guys this year, and that's true of a number of programs across the country this season. I guess I'm just curious if there's something about this season that seems similar to year 1, even though it's not year 1, it's year 3, and maybe if you anticipated some of these growing pains that you guys are having this season.
Yes, Sam. We did anticipate some of them. We had 13 players that were in NFL camps, whether they were drafted or free agents, and a lot of them stuck. We had a mature senior-oriented team a year ago, I think with 23 seniors, and we turn around and don't have as many seniors. I think, your football team is run by your seniors. That's where a lot of your leadership comes from. Those guys take ownership of your program, and I think that's what it comes down to. We're a young football team. I think we still have good football players, but they're younger and getting a lot of play time, for the first time in their careers, and you're going to take your bumps and bruises. Now, when you look at our schedule and who we played, I think that also plays into it. So you got a young football team that plays, a Penn State football team who, is pretty good. Oklahoma State's pretty good. Georgia Tech is having a great season. Syracuse knocks off the number 2 team in the country and is a much improved team. And North Carolina State's in the top 15. So I think you look at a young football team with less seniors, and you look at a schedule that was I guess rated early in the year or before the season started as one of the hardest schedules in the country, which is what we want, and I think it'll pay off. Hopefully, as we enter into the final part of the season here in the fourth quarter of the 2017 season, I think that's part of it, and and I think when you talk about third year and all those things, I don't necessarily think it's the years that you're in your program. Thinking the third, the fourth, and the fifth are going to be better than the first or the second. I think it's all based on who your kids are and what kind of football team you inherit. If we'd inherited a team that was one game when I got here, it'd be a different story. But we weren't a bad football team when I got here.
Understood.
So I think you got to base why did the guy get a job? Did he get a job because someone got fired and things weren't going good, or did he get a job because a guy left to go to Wisconsin and take a job that was in his hometown and did a nice job where he was?
Understood. When you have a young team, are there things that you just have to convince them of and coach them up on as they kind of learn how to play this game?
Yeah, Sam, I think, when you have a young team, it's sometimes you can practice it, but they don't really get it until they see it affect them in a game, and how important, whether it's getting lined up or that block or, the split of the receiver and making sure you get an outside release. I mean, there's so many details when there's 11 guys on the field at a time that if one guy doesn't do it right, you have problems. And sometimes you have to learn, by experience. And a lot of those situations sometimes don't even happen until you get into a game, and then you find out from a young football team, Sam, how they're going to react when the lights come on. We talk all the time about, it's fine. You did it right in practice, and you did it right when you're sitting on your practice facility on the south side of Pittsburgh, and then you go to Heinz Field and you play play in front of big crowds. All of a sudden, you don't do the right things, and it comes to that experience. I think. Iron sharpens iron, and I think you have to be under fire to get all those things accomplished like you'd like to.
Thank you very much.
You got it, Sam.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Pat, you've been spreading the work among your tailbacks. most of the season. And then Darren Hall erupts for 254 yards last week. Has he earned a few more snaps because of that?
I would say he has. I mean, he ran like his hair was on fire, and ran hard. Did a lot of little things right. Not only with his footwork in the backfield before he got the ball, but what he did with it after he got the ball in his hands. And we've known Darren. He was in our first recruiting class here. He's still another young guy that I think gets better weekly. A year ago we had James Conner in there getting a majority of the reps, and really nobody wanted to take 24 out of the game. And now it's those young guys that are getting those opportunities. He's a talented man. He's big. He's fast. He's physical, and he's playing good football right now. So yeah, he's going to get the majority of them. And if things don't go well, then we got other guys that we think we've got confidence in too.
He had two extremely long runs. I think 90-some yards and 79 yards. So obviously, for a big guy, he moves really well once he hits the open field.
He really does, and he probably has maybe one of the better speeds in our backfield, to be honest with you. And he's big. It's not like he's a 180-pound guy running through there, and nobody could walk him down. And so that's a positive. I think it helps his confidence, and obviously the offensive line did a great job of getting to that point, and we knew based on their coverage and the way they were playing things and getting tight to the line of scrimmage that if you popped one that you could go the distance, and he was able to do that. That won the game for us, that's for sure.
Right. What kinds of particular problems does Virginia cause? Where are the areas where they made the biggest strides from last season?
Well, I really believe Broncos doing a great job. First thing, I think they're going to cause chaos with their front seven. I mean, you never know really who's going to blitz. Is it going to be Peace blitzing or more blitzing? You got Micah Kaiser. I think they got really athletic football players that are understanding his scheme. And, our offensive line is going to have to do a good job at picking up what they bring at us this weekend.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
Any more questions for Coach Narduzzi?
As a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
We'll be back with Coach Adazio right at 12:20. We're back, and we're now joined by Boston College head coach Steve Adazio, whose Eagles will host Atlantic Division rival Florida State this Friday night at Alumni Stadium in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts. The game will have an 8 p.m. kickoff. We're nationally televised by ESPN. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Well, we're awfully excited to be back home and playing in Alumni Stadium. As you said, at 8 o'clock on Friday night, we're playing Florida State, which I have so much respect for. Jimbo Fisher, truly one of the great coaches in the country right now, and his program, what he's done with that program, and the way they've recruited. They've got fantastic players on both sides of the ball, very, very talented, very well coached in every phase. And so it would be an unbelievable challenge for us. I know that James Blackman's getting better every week. You can see him improve. You can see the quality of Cam Akers, what an unbelievable running back he is with speed, and Ryan Izzo's playing great. The receivers are good-sized guys. Auden Tate go up and catch the football. I mean, very talented. On defense, just some tremendous players, big, strong guys up front, Brian Burns and Derwin James, and defensive back Tavares McFadden. I mean, fantastic players. So our program has all the respect in the world for Florida State, and we know very well that we have to have a great continued week of preparation to play them here on Friday night. It'll be a great challenge for our program, but it'll be a great night of college football. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
One thing I'd like to add before anybody asks a question is this is a red bandana game for us, which is in honor of Wells Crowther, who gave his life saving others in the towers on 9/11, and has great meaning not only for Boston College, but I think for our country is a great representation of honoring someone who others were more important than himself. So it has a great impact on us, and we're really excited to represent Wells and his family in this game. Thank you.
Our first question comes from the line of Ted Sobel with Sports USA Radio. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi, Coach. Nice touch there, too, by the way. Much appreciated by all. Recent headline of an article said, suddenly BC is one of the most watchable teams in the nation. You are on our national radio broadcast this week. Why, in your opinion, is that the case? And who should we watch for specifically?
Well, I think in the last couple of weeks, certainly offensively, we've been able to make more plays. Our quarterback is settling in a little bit. Anthony Brown is getting more and more comfortable. We have, a series of players that are young players right now that we're going into week 9 and they're starting to get a little bit more comfort. So we're making a few more plays, and it's giving us more explosive capability and more diversity on offense. And I think, we play well on defense and are able to get, more possessions. We're 4th in the country in amount of plays run right now. And, our third down conversion rate is getting better, and that's keeping us on the field. So some of those things are all factoring in. I think we've done it against good competition as well. So we're growing, but we're still a work in progress for sure. And we're going to go up against what I think is one of the very finest defenses in the country in Florida State, and that always makes it extremely difficult to move the football.
I was going to say specifically your biggest challenge against Florida State is?
There's so many of them, honestly, but I think defensively we've got to be able to contain their playmakers. They run the ball well, they throw the ball well. I think Jimbo just does such an unbelievable job with the offense. They're very well balanced, and then of course, when we're on offense, we've got to be able to establish the run, but in the same breath, against a formal defense like that, if you think you're just going to run the football all night long, that's not going to work. So we're going to have balance on our own right. So, we're going to have to play a very, very good football game, and we've got to come out winning the turnover battle.
Thanks much, Coach. All the best.
Thank you.
Our next question comes on the line of John Kekis with the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Can you talk about Michael Walker and what he means to your team?
Yeah, Michael, he's a real versatile guy. Obviously, as our punt returner, kickoff returner, but also as a wide receiver. He's a leader on the team. This is a tremendous guy. A tough guy, loves football, works really, really, really hard, and kind of guy that you love being around. So I think very well respected and liked on the football team as well.
What is there a play that sticks out this year on one of the returns he's made? Because he leads the country in combined yardage on punt and kickoffs.
You know, I think a couple things flash at me so far this year. One was against Central Michigan when he hit those punts on the dead run, and that's hard to do. And then I think the flea flicker pass that he caught last Saturday. He ran by two defenders and caught it over his shoulder and made an unbelievable catch. So those were two highlight reel tapes. That was a highlight reel play, and of course those punt returns I thought were pretty special back a few weeks ago.
The ACC has a bunch of guys that are up in the high rankings in return. Small guys. Is that a trend? Do you think that's kind of a trend, or they seem to have more than any of the other Power 5 conferences?
Well, I think you've got some, dynamic players in the conference right now, and I think that, when you have good programs realize the importance level of special teams and the work that goes into special teams. And I think that in our conference we've got really good programs, really good coaches, and I think special teams is a priority. So you're going to see talented guys that are put in good schemes with an understanding of how important that role is, and I think that's why you see what you see.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Our next question comes online of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, your freshman runner, your true freshman runner, A.J. Dillon, has really come along lately. What did you like about him? Did you have any plans to redshirt him this year, or did he just earn a playing, spot right off the bat? And how has he progressed during the season?
No, we knew we'd play him right away. AJ's an elite player. You're talking about tremendous size, tremendous speed, and vision, and hands. He's the whole package. And he's an impact player. And so we knew that was a huge deal for us, that we'd get him on the field. I think what we've seen as the season going on is just a development and a comfort level, and understanding different pieces of the offense, like how to run, we're in shotgun, we're 7.5 yards deep in the I formation. I mean, we're pretty multiple. And then learning how to also handle the repetitive amount of carries, sometimes, with a guy every run for him is like unbelievable effort. So when you put a couple of three of those back to back, he can get pretty gassed. And I think learning how to extend your boundaries and how long you can sustain running at that level with multiple carries has gotten better each week. But he is going to truly be one of the great players in this conference, and that's a fact. And I'm just glad that he plays for the Eagles.
Also, since a lot of things have come together for you offensively here, how much has the development of Anthony Brown, a quarterback, played a part in that?
Well, I think that's paramount. I've said many times. In pro football, college football, high school, whatever, you need a quarterback is such a key piece of everything. With good play at the quarterback, it's like high tide; all the boats come up. The passing game is better, the running game is better, your third down conversion is better, you stay on the field longer, you have a better opportunity to make plays. You got to have a quarterback. You got to have a guy, and that guy comes in all different shapes and sizes, and comes in the form of, can be an unbelievable elite runner, can be an elite thrower. But when you got that guy that's got a little it to him and can be at the epicenter of making plays, you got a chance to have some success on offense. So we've recruited and brought in some good pieces here, but what we're finally we're able to get increased quarterback play right now, and that's really helped us all the way around. And the key is to keep consistency, and we're still young at a lot of those positions. We're talking center freshman, tailback freshman, quarterback freshman, receiver freshman. And so, the job ahead of us is we all know that the future is super, super bright, okay? But the here and now, we've got to do the best we can and not be on a roller coaster ride. And be up and then down and back up and then down, because that's traditionally what happens with young players. It's hard to sustain consistency, and that's the concern, and that's the fight that we're in right now, is to find that level of consistency and hang in there with it.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Yep.
Coach, this is Mike Finn in Greensboro. Thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Mike.
We're now joined by Duke head football coach David Cutcliffe, whose Blue Devils will travel to Blacksburg, Virginia, for a Saturday game against the 13th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies at Lane Stadium. The game will have a 7:20 p.m. kickoff. Will be televised to 120 markets nationally by the ACC network, including WWCW TV in Roanoke, Lynchburg, and WRAL TV in Durham, in Raleigh-Durham, actually. And also Duke defensive back Jeremy McDuffie was named one of the semifinalists this week for the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award, which goes annually to the nation's top defensive back. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and we'll go to questions.
Now, obviously, I've just walked out of the film room continuing to work and look at Virginia Tech, and I'll say it again, I think they're better than their ranking. I think they're a top 10 team. They're a balanced team. They're outstanding on offense. They're outstanding on defense and really play the kicking game exceptionally well, a well-coached football team. So we certainly have our hands full traveling to Blacksburg. Take questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Bill Haas from Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yes, David. Other than Miami, which handled you pretty good, the other 3 losses that you've had have all been close games. Has there been any common threads in there that you've seen, some just execution or just things that you aren't doing quite as well as you did at the beginning of the season?
Well, we've got a good football team, but like a lot of teams, consistency is the biggest challenge. And when we have been inconsistent, whether it was on offense, defense, or in the kicking game, it seems to have, it's going to bite us. And so we've given up 2 big long runs to Pitt, and the differences are very minuscule when you lose by a touchdown. Even the Miami game, for most of the 4 quarters, the game was a really good game, and then we were the most physical team on the field, to be honest with you. But it's as I said, good, well-coached teams don't lose consistently by touchdowns, and so it is a combination of things, and consistency falls on the coach. And we've got to find that.
You've had a number of defensive players who've done well this year. The guy who has the impressive statistics, Joe Giles, a linebacker. Can you? What kind of season has he had for you? What kind of just being a sophomore? What kind of player is he developing into?
Joe Giles Harris is one of the best football players we've got. He redshirted as a freshman. We had a little more experienced group at linebacker. He started for us a year ago every game. He is a big, powerful guy that can play sideline to sideline. Joe doesn't have much to say, but he flat works every day. And as I said, I think if you asked our team, you asked the guys that were his teammates, name some of the best players you got on your team. He may be the first or second one mentioned. He's a really good football player.
Thanks very much, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Our next question comes from the line of John Kekis with the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. You have Sean Wilson, and there are a lot of other guys in the league like him. What does that do for the league, having all these versatile guys? Is that something that stands out to you?
Yeah, I think it's you start seeing as a league gets better, you see more and more players that are playmakers, difference makers, and Sean is that for us. And he's staying healthy for the most part right now. He's a great receiver. He's a great running back. We try to get him the ball in a lot of different ways, and probably not as much as I should. But he is an outstanding senior for us and a guy that we trust to do a lot of things. But I think our league has got threats. You see it across the board. I'll turn on tape, and every team's got somebody that makes you nervous. And that's kind of as the league has grown, you know.
Yep. And is that something that you, obviously it's something you have to be aware of as you prepare for guys like Henderson of Pitt that can just break open a game?
Yeah, he had me, you know, he owes me some sleep hours, to be honest with you. You know, we just got through with him, and he's a terrific player, a return man. You see a combination of those guys that do all of that. And I love those kinds of players. They're just ball players. They grew up playing ball, and most of them can throw it, they can catch it, they can run with it. You know, if you can catch kickoffs and punts, and Sean does both of those for us, then you know, and so does Henderson, for example. And what scares you is that we see some teams in our league that have 3 or 4 of those guys, and now you're really talking about making it difficult to defend.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, you're welcome.
Any more questions for Coach Cutcliffe?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, we'll go easy on you today. We'll let you off early.
That, Mike, thank you. I got lots of work left to do now.
Hold on, Coach.
We just have a question that queued up.
Oh, no, man.
But it's Herman Thomas, Coach. It's Herman Thomas.
Okay.
Our next question comes from the line of Herman Thomas with Early Mornings with Herman Thomas. Please go ahead.
Okay, Coach, I'm sorry I'm bothering you at the end. I apologize for that. But, Coach, Justin stated earlier this week that you do some great things schematically. I know you mentioned earlier about their special teams. I know each coach has their own identity. Do you see any similarities to the old style of Beamer ball at Virginia Tech again?
Yeah, you do in this measure. You can tell they emphasize an aggressive kicking game. Every little thing's covered. When they view returns as an opportunity, they view coverage as an opportunity. They will come after a punt with intent to block a punt. You know, I just, you know, that to me is what Beamer Bowl was. It's not schematic. It is a belief in the kicking game. And certainly, I think as a young first coach, that Justin Fuente is establishing the fact that Virginia Tech is going to be outstanding in the kicking game.
Okay, Coach, I'm going to let you go. I won't have any follow-ups, and I wish you the best on this Saturday.
Well, thank you. See, that kicking game's got me more work to do right now, so that's the
You take care now.
All right.
Coach, thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
We'll be joined right at 12:40 by Dave Dorn of NC State. Okay, we're back, and we're joined by NC State head coach Dave Dorn, whose Wolfpack ranked 14th by the Associated Press, 15th by the Amway Coaches Poll, will travel to South Bend, Indiana to face ninth-ranked Notre Dame at Notre Dame Stadium. The game will have a 3:30 p.m. kickoff, be nationally televised by NBC. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, we had a good bye week here, and had a really good opportunity to self-scout us and look at our systems, all three phases, and sit down with our players individually and talk, about where they're at and what kind of goals they have individually and technique and fundamentals, and get in the weight room a little bit and get caught up with our body weights and our sleep and all the things that matter here as we go down a really challenging stretch. And getting into this week, excited to go play a great Notre Dame team, and one of the nation's best venues to play a game. And I know it's going to be a spirited game with two very physical football teams that statistically have done a nice job on the line of scrimmages throughout the year, and their running back's a great player. Offensive line for them with 4 seniors, and our D-line with 4 seniors. I think it's going to be a great matchup to watch for fans, and look forward to competing in this game. Questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of John Kekis with the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Naheem is obviously an integral part of your offense, and the ACC has a bunch of guys kind of like him that are all-purpose guys. Can you speak to that as far as the league's strength in that area and what he's meant to your team?
Yeah, well, Naheem is such a competitor first. He's gifted from a speed standpoint, but his competitive spirit is what makes him special, in my opinion. The fact that he's producing on offense is kind of something that we knew he could do. He's an elite returner. He helps us on our punt coverage unit down in punts inside the 10. He's had several of those plays which have helped our field position and our defense. And he's a selfless guy. As far as our conference goes, the ACC's had great talent for a long time, and it's only getting better. And week in and week out, you see a lot of different types of players that bring different things to the table.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Our next question comes from the line of Samuel Evers with the Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, both you and Notre Dame have kind of, valuable advantages. You guys coming off a bye and then coming off a big win. I was just kind of curious, as a coach, which would you prefer? To have the bye, an extra week to focus, or to have a big momentum game like they did against USC?
Well, I think both are good. I don't know if one is better than the other. I will say for our team at this time, the bye week came at a good time just because we were beat up, and we've been dealing with, nicks and bumps and flus and different things like that for the last month. And so I think, for us, it came at a really good time for our guys to recover. But, there's always, from a football program standpoint, you love to win a big game, and, anytime you do that, you've got a lot of positive momentum.
Yeah, gotcha. And then just speaking of the injuries, I know Bradley Chubb had kind of a weird injury a couple weeks ago. Is he going to be all right?
Yeah, he's fine. He played the rest of the game. He just dislocated a finger that went right back in, and he's doing really good. But we're as healthy as we've been, probably healthier than we were in the opener even. The secondary finally has gotten back to having everybody that we can have outside of the guys that are out for the year, and they're practicing and doing all the things you need them to do. That's been important because we've had a lack of depth there, until about the last 2 weeks. So excited to have, a real rotation back there now.
Gotcha. Thanks, Coach.
Our next question comes from the line of Leo Haggerty with It's Sports Magazine. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach.
How you doing?
Good, doing fine, Coach. Thanks for asking. Coach, you drew the short straw this year and got the Notre Dame everybody expects to have to play. What are you seeing on film that made them different from the last couple of years?
They got to play us too, and so we just line up whoever they put on the schedule. We're going to give them everything we got. As far as what are they doing better than last year, they're running the football, and they believe in running the football. A year ago, they were more of a passing football team. with Kaiser at quarterback, and I think he's using his personnel well. I think he's got an excellent offensive line and a big running back and big tight ends, and what they're doing really fits their personnel, and they're doing it well, and they believe in it. Defensively, I think Mike Elko is a great coach, and they're very sound. A year ago, he let go as defensive coordinator in the beginning of the season, and so that side of the ball was a mess, and so they're playing well, and they're playing with good systems right now.
Coach, last question, and thank you for your time today. There's 5 or 6 teams right now in the ACC that controls their own destiny. Is it nice to know that all you got to do is worry about yourself and not worry about help from anybody else, just win?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime you're in that position, you can really focus internally and think about the things you can do to make your players better and help your coaches coach better and allow guys to improve. I have a saying here that we talk about all the time. Is just we want to put a personal best on the field every day, and it's finding that one more thing you can work on. And I think when you're not worried about anything on the outside of your program, that helps.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck this weekend.
Appreciate it.
Our next question is a follow-up question by the line of Samuel Evers with the Rocky Mount Telegram. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, and I know you mentioned this briefly in your opening statement, but I'm just wondering, what maybe if you've had a personal experience with South Bend and what it kind of means to play there, and if there's maybe a little bit of an extra buzz amongst your players this week.
I have, just growing up in the Midwest in a Catholic home and going to Catholic church and Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, obviously Notre Dame, something that is talked about a lot. I've been up there several times to watch them play when I was young, and then when I was a graduate assistant at USC, we played there, in the rivalry game. So I know what that place is like, and excited to have an opportunity not just to play there, but to compete and do it with a great football team that we have against their team that's playing as good as they can play. So, I think it's an outstanding opportunity, for our program, and excited to be a part of it.
Gotcha. Thanks, Coach.
Our next question comes from the line of Bill Haas with Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, just to continue on that for a moment, do you say anything in particular to your players just about the mystique of Notre Dame and the Golden Dome and all that and the atmosphere? And, there's some tremendous venues in the ACC, but that one is sort of the stuff of legend. And how do your players deal with that?
We don't make a big deal out of it. It's still a football field with 2 locker rooms, and we're going to go out there and play as hard as we can and not let something that doesn't have anything to do with winning or losing be a part of the game.
The other thing I wanted to check with you, of course, Bradley Chubb's having an amazing season. What kind of player has he turned himself into?
I think he's the best defensive lineman in the country, and it's a tribute to his work ethic. He's taken the ability that his genetics and God has given him, and worked his tail off, not just on the field but in the football classroom, to become a very smart football player. He's gone from a 237-pound linebacker to a 275-pound nightmare, and he plays so hard, and he competes so hard, and he has fun doing it, and I think for our team, it's just a joy for all these guys to practice with a guy like that. He comes to work every day. He has the same energy level every day, and it's infectious, and it's fun being around players like him. At times, you'll be around a guy that you wish he did something harder or worked at it more, and he's the complete opposite of that.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Coach, thanks for being with us. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Mike. Go Pack.
We now welcome Miami head coach Mark Richt, whose Hurricanes ranked 8th nationally by AP in the Amway Coaches Poll, will travel to Chapel Hill, North Carolina for a Saturday game against Coastal Division rival North Carolina. The game will have a noon kickoff, will be nationally televised by ESPN2. Miami linebacker Michael Pinckney was chosen as the Walter Camp National Defensive Player of the Week for his play in the Hurricanes' win over Syracuse last week. And we just found out today that Miami tight end Christopher Herndon IV was named the John Mackey tight end of the week for the nation. Coach, just a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions.
Right. Well, it's good for those guys to get those, not necessarily awards, but at least attention, and it just proves the point of if you win games, then those types of things happen. I think if you're not winning, it's harder for those players to get that type of attention. But not that that's what we're built on by any means, but the goal is to win and to not care who gets the credit, but more people tend to get credit when you do win.
Questions for Coach Rick?
As a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4. Our first question comes from the line of Mike Barber with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I apologize for pulling you off topic here, but Carla Williams was hired as Virginia's athletic director. She talked a lot about you and your work with her. What stands out, and why did you ask that she be the one to supervise for you when you were together?
Well, first of all, I thought she was the sharpest person within our administration, and I knew she had a real level head, and I knew she was a person of high integrity and communication skills, so I just knew I would be able to work well with her, and I think she gets the big picture and understands, how to get things done.
You guys obviously were tremendously successful at Georgia and with football. Does she have a special understanding of what it takes to win at that level in football?
I think she does. I think she does it at all sports. I mean, the ingredients are mostly the same as far as hiring good people and doing whatever you can to give that coach that you hired the resources to get things done. And when you can do it, you get it done. And when you can't do it, you're able to communicate why maybe it can't be done, or maybe why you don't agree that this is important or a priority. And that goes a long way when you know what needs to get done, but you also can communicate when things can't get done.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Yes.
Our next question comes from the line of Mark Weiser with the Athens Banner Herald. Please go ahead.
Hey, Mark. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. How you doing, Mark?
Good. I don't want to make this too Georgia heavy, but I wanted to ask you, looking back 10 years ago to the Georgia-Florida game and the celebration after Noshawn's score, what you remember about what led to the moment, and where does that game stack up in terms of all the ones you've had?
Well, what led to it is we got beat really bad by Tennessee. And then the next game I think we played was Vanderbilt, and we barely won it, and there was not a lot of enthusiasm. And I was like, we gotta create some energy somehow. And so when I was a coordinator at Florida State, I used to every so often say, hey, when we score, you guys celebrate hard enough, just celebrate hard, and if you don't celebrate hard enough to get a flag, then you didn't celebrate hard enough. So, whether that's right or wrong, that was the thinking behind it. And that's what I told our team, and what I thought they heard was, the team that's on the field, you celebrate. Because what happened during the week is we had an open date actually, and so every time they'd score against a scout team, some guy would try to spike it through the goalpost or spin the ball, and I'm like, you guys don't get it. This is a team celebration, not an individual celebration. So I think when I said the whole team needs to celebrate, or when I said the team needs to celebrate, they thought the whole team, and I was really talking about whoever was in the game at the time. So when he scored, everybody felt like they had an obligation to go celebrate, and we got at least 2 penalties. But the goal really was not for the team to come off the bench. The goal was for the guys on the field to just celebrate real hard. And as it turned out, everybody ran out there, except for Daniel Ellerby. I think he was in the doghouse, and he knew not to go out. But, the other thing that happened, too, was, similar to the Florida State game this year, when our receiver, Langham, made the catch that won the game, the touchdown. But when he caught the ball, our sideline went, crazy, and we had enough spill over to the field. We got a penalty there. And as it turned out, on both of those plays, Noshawn's play and Langham's play, it was under review. So, if we did not score on either one of those, that it'd have been 3rd and 16, I think, in both cases, which would have been horrible, and maybe wouldn't have won either game.
Just quickly, one more thing on Roquan Smith. You guys signed him, lingered into the next day.
Right.
Do you remember thinking this was a special guy in terms of his playmaking ability, and have you seen him on TV much?
I've not seen him. I've heard people talk about him, though. I say I've not seen him. I'm not, studied anything or watched a bunch of it, but I know people are talking great things about him. And, athletically, he's just one of those guys that can really run, and he's still a very physical guy. He just, when physical thumping type linebackers can run, then they can be pretty special.
Good luck. Best of luck this season.
Thanks, Mark.
Our next question comes on the line of John Kekis with the Associated Press. Please go ahead.
Hey, Coach. The ACC has a bunch of pretty high-quality all-purpose guys, and you'll be facing one this week. Can you speak to that in general, the league's strength in that area, and how do you prepare for a guy like Ratliff?
Right. Well, we do have a lot of guys like that. And, of course, we had Mark Walton, who's a multi-purpose guy. Travis Homer now is kind of becoming that for us. But I don't know. I think the bottom line, when you have guys that are productive in a lot of different ways, you still, when you break it down, there's only, he can only play one position at a time. He can only do one skill set at a time. So I think you just try not to go too crazy trying to stop one guy, because all of a sudden you open up holes on the other. You just got to be sound with what you're doing defensively and run to the ball and tackle and do the things that good fundamental defenses do.
The league is very strong in their all-purpose category, though. They have some of the 9 of the top 50.
Yeah, that's great. That just goes to show we're recruiting kids with a lot of ability, and they're making plays.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.
Our next question comes on line of Bill Haas with Greensboro. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, Travis Homer seems to have settled in very nicely since Mark Walton went down.
Right.
How's he come along, and what's his ceiling?
Well, I remember when I first saw his tape, he was one of the first guys I looked at when I took the job. And there's actually 2 guys we had committed, that were committed to Miami, not to the new staff, I guess. And one guy who's probably doing great wherever he's at, I can't remember his name, I thought he was a little undersized. And then even Homer, I was thinking, I don't know if he's that big. I met him in person at school, but he was coming off of a surgery, and he just didn't look physically strong enough to take the pounding that a running back has to take. And then when he got healthy and he got on campus and he started working out, the guy really took to the weights, and he's much more physically built than I really thought his frame would carry. And he's a workaholic, and he's just got great vision, great speed, good hands. He's smart, he's tough. He's really a good back, and I think he'll become better even as he gets bigger and stronger as time goes on.
You're playing a team that's 1-7 and coming off a terrible beating last weekend. What are the things to be aware of against them in particular, and just a game like that?
Well, I think maybe one example, you see the score and you're thinking, Virginia Tech must have scored at will, if you didn't see the game, which I did not. So I start watching the tape of North Carolina's defense, First drive, second drive, third drive. I think they got. I mean, Virginia Tech didn't score, but the scoreboard kept lighting up. And I'm like, what? You know, obviously it had to be a defensive score here and there, a special team score. But I guess the point I'm making is, if you just looked at the tape of the first, 3 or 4 drives of that game, North Carolina's defense played really good. And then by about halftime, I quit watching it as a game, and I started looking at it by down and distance and formation and all that. But sometimes you just got to look at the game in the context of how it was played. And I mean, I was expecting a defense that was struggling and couldn't get a stop, and then what I saw was something completely different.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any more questions for Coach Richt?
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, to register for a question, press the 1 followed by the 4.
Coach, thanks for being with us today. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This concludes today's ACC Football Media Teleconference. Please join us next week on Wednesday at 10:20 in the morning when we open with Notre Dame head coach Brian Kelly. Thanks for being with us.